So first, let's talk about this following question. First is, what is urinary system? It is also known as the renal system or the urinary tract. Consists of the kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra. Second question is, what is male reproductive system? It consists of a number of sex organs that play a role in the process of human reproduction. Third question is, what is female reproductive system? It is made up of the internal organ and external sex organs that function in production of offspring. Fourth question is all about what is ovulation. Ovulation is release of an egg from an ovaries. Later, I'll elaborate more about these topics. Then finally, the fifth and last but not the least question is, what is the fertilization? It is the action of process fertilizing an egg, the fusion of male and female gametes to form a cycle. First, let's talk about the urinary system. The purpose of the urinary system is to eliminate waste from the body, regulate blood volume and regulate blood pressure, control levels of the electrolytes and metabolites, and regulate blood pH. The urinary system consists of the kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra. Kidneys are a pair of pin-shaped organs on either side of your spine, below your ribs, and behind your belly. Ureter is a tube that carries urine from the kidney to the urinary bladder, and there are two ureters only attached to each kidneys. Urinary bladder is a muscular sac in the pelvis just above and behind the pubic bone. And lastly, urethra is the tube that carries urine from the bladder to the outside of the body. Next to the parts and function of the urinary system is the urine formation. So how does urine form? Urine is formed in the kidneys through the filtration of blood. The urine is then passed through the ureters to the bladders where it is stored. During urination, the urine is passed from the bladders through the urethra outside of the body. The kidneys filtered unwanted substances from the blood and produce urine to excrete them. There are three main steps of urine formation: the glomerular filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. This process ensures that only waste and excess water are removed from the body. The urine is formed in the three processes in a nephron to function in a part of the kidney. In glomerular filtration, the glomerulus fertile water solute substances in the plasma of the blood. This increases the blood pressure, which forces the plasma-like fluid from the blood into the Bowman's capsule and then to the tubules. The fluid is filtered include many positive and negative ions in the element. The filtrate does not have protein or red blood cells, which are too large to pass the capillary membrane. In tubular reabsorption, transported out of the tubule and back into the peritubular capillaries, reabsorption takes place of proximal tubule, loop of Henle, and distal tubule. The major part of reabsorption is the proximal tubule, which is about 15 water and reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. In tubular secretion, substances move from the plasma and peritubular capillary back into the filtrate. In the renal tubule, proximal tubules secrete creatinine and the distal tubule and collect and secrete potassium into the filtrate. All tubules secrete hydrogen ion to regulate the pH of the body fluid. The filtrate is now urine. Urine is about 95% of water with balanced 5% of solute in urea, uric acid, amino acid, and electrolyte. The daily production is about 0.6 to 2.5 liter a day. Urine production is below 30 millimeters per hour, indicates possible urine failure. The active urination involves close coordination between the nervous system and the muscle. Once the volume of the water is about 300 to 400 ml, this way half full, pressure of the wall increases, and that sends signal to urination or micturition center of the spinal cord, located at the S2 and S3. This attached at the reflex are called the micturition reflex, which causes contraction of the bladder and relaxation of internal and external sphincter. Now, the Pontine Storage Center and the Pontine Micturition Center are 1-2 area of your brain that help you control the urination. When you can't find the toilet, the water holding in the urine, then you activate the Pontine Storage Center that stops the micturition reflex. When you finally find the toilet and you're ready to urinate, the Pontine's micturition center is active, and it allows the micturition reflex happen, and finally you can pee. As a quick recap, the kidney's main function is to filtrate all the body's blood about 30 times a day and to produce urine. The urine passes through the ureters into the bladders. As urine collection of bladder increases the pressure in the bladder wall and the micturition reflex is triggered. This allows the flow of the urine through the urethra and out of the body. We're done with the urinary system, and now let's proceed to the male reproductive system. The function of the male reproductive system is including the producing and transporting sperm, ejaculating into the female reproductive tract, and producing and secreting male hormones. First, let's talk about the external structures. First, penis, the male sexual organ for the copulation and urination. The tubular portion of the male organ genitalia. Second is the scrotum, the bag skin and muscle that contains the testes and the urine. Next is epididymis, a narrow, tightly coiled tube where sperm are stored during maturation. It connects the afferent duct from the rear of each testicle to its vas deferens. Then testes, also referred to as testicles, the male gonads in the human. So as we go to the internal reproductive organs of male, we can tackle the how the sperm forms. Internal reproductive organs of male. The first internal organ that will be discussed is the testes. The main male reproductive organ that has two main functions. First is to produce male gametes of sperm, and the second is to produce the male reproductive hormone, which is the testosterone. The testes has the tunica vaginalis, the extension of peritoneum, and the external covering is tunica albuginea, that is thicker and have a dense tissue. The tunica albuginea sends the vein septae, which divides the testes into numerous lobules. These tubules contains the seminiferous tubules that are highly coiled tube-like structure. Let's look at the wall of the seminiferous tubules. As you can see, the wall of the seminiferous tubules contains three types of cells: the Leydig cells, Sertoli cells, and germ cells. The Leydig cells have the primary production of hormone testosterone, and the germ cell differentiate towards the seminiferous tubules from the immature sperm. And Sertoli cells have the function to protect and provide growth to germ cells. Now let's talk about the epididymis. It is a highly coiled tube connects testes to vas deferens. The epididymis comprises the head, body, and tail. The immature sperm is produced in the seminiferous tubules passed through the epididymis by the efferent ductules. This immature sperm travels towards the tail of the epididymis and goes through the process of maturation. During this process of maturation, the immature sperm become mature and gain properties like motility and fertility. The next internal male reproductive organ is the vas deferens. The vas deferens is also known as the ductus deferens. The ductus deferens is 30 centimeter long tube that connects the epididymis to the ejaculatory duct. The wall of the vas deferens is lined by smooth muscles, has the passage of sperm through the lumen. Next is seminal vesicle, which is a small secretory gland that is connected to the vas deferens by a small duct. The main function of the seminal vessel is that produce seminal fluid that mixes sperm and forms semen. This fluid is alkaline to prolong survival of sperm as the involvement inside the vagina is acidic. Final reproductive organ is the prostate gland. The prostate gland lies on below of the bladder, and the main function is to secrete alkaline fluid that forms 30% of the total semen volume. This improves survival and motility of the sperms. We are done with the male reproductive system, so now let's go to the female reproductive system. The female reproductive system includes the ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, vagina, vulva, mammary glands, and breast. These organs are involved in the production and transportation of gametes and production of sex hormones. It also facilitates the fertilization of ova by sperm and supports the development of offspring during pregnancy and infancy. Also, here are the female reproductive system physiology. First, the reproductive cycle. It is the process of producing an ovum and readying the uterus to receive an fertilized ovum to begin the pregnancy. Next is oogenesis and ovulation. It is under the influence of follicle stimulating hormone FSH and luteinizing hormone DLH. The ovaries produces a mature ovum in the process known as the ovulation. Okay, next is fertilization. Once the mature ovum is released from the ovary, the fimbriae catch the egg and it down and the fallopian tube to the uterus. Next is the menstrual cycle. The given name in the whole cycle of hormonal fluctuations that result in ovulation and conception or failing that in the monthly periodic bleeding called menstruation. Then pregnancy. If the ovum is fertilized by an sperm, the fertilized embryo will implant itself into the endometrium and begin to form an amniotic cavity, umbilical cord, and placenta. After pregnancy is lactation, the production and release of milk to feed an infant. The production of milk begins prior to birth under the control of hormone prolactin. Let's have a recap of the reproductive system of female. It comprises the internal and external such as ovaries, the fallopian tubes, uterus, and the vagina, as well as the external sex organs such as labia, mons pubis, and clitoris. The ovaries of the female organ gonads produce the ova as well as the female sex hormones. Be the ovaries on the uterus as subject postural hormonal activities of the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. The uterus is where pregnancy develops and the baby comes into the wall through the birth canal or vagina that connects in the external and internal sex organs. So let's go back to the ovulation, fertilization, and menstrual cycle. Ovulation is an release of egg from one ovaries and it happens in midway through the menstrual cycle, although the exact time may vary. And in the preparation of ovulation, the lining of the endometrium thickens. The pituitary gland stimulates one of the ovary to release an egg. The wall of the ovarian follicle nurtures at the cervix of the ovary. The egg is released. Finger-like structures called fimbriae sweep the egg into the fallopian tubes. The egg travels through the fallopian tube, then part by the contraction of the fallopian tube walls. Here in the fallopian tube and may be fertilized by a sperm if the egg is fertilized. The egg and sperm unite to form one cell eternity called the zygote. As the zygote travels down the fallopian tube towards the uterus, it begins to divide rapidly to form a cluster of cells resembling a mini raspberry. When the zygote reaches the uterus, it will implant the lining of the uterus, and pregnancy begins. If the egg isn't fertilized, it simply reabsorbs at the body perhaps before it even reached the uterus. About 2 weeks later, the lining of the uterus through the vagina is known as the menstruation.